Hello and you're very welcome to State of Us Election 2020, Joe's brand new politics show. Even at this early stage, you'll probably have noticed that I am not, in fact, Dion Fanning. I'm Paddy McKenna. But do not despair because Dion is here.
But I'm not Ellen Coyne.
He is not Ellen Coyne. And Carl Kinsella is here.
Kinsella, I'm pretty sure.
You are still Carl Kinsella.
Yeah.
Carl Kinsella. Ellen Coyne and Ellen sadly cannot be here. But I mean, in true, State of Us fashion, we've had our first political reshuffle, and I was thinking
Ellen is sick.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, but if it's
it's not a reshuffle if you're sick.
We've reshuffled the chairs for today for one day only, a new cabinet. I was thinking of being a benevolent Taoiseach. Self-appointed myself as Taoiseach here, and
this works?
And allowing you to pick your own portfolios. But then I thought, no, that's not how it's done. So Dion, as a man of the world, exceptional diplomacy, cordial relations with our nearest neighbour, and a nuanced understanding. Foreign affairs, Dion. How do you feel?
I'll take it, Paddy.
Take that.
I'll take it.
Carol, finance. No reason, just I'm keen
I
to
was
know where
wondering,
you're going to spend your money.
How did you come to
our money?
Yeah, well, a lot of, what I spent my money on this morning was My Chemical Romance tickets. So I guess I would nationalize My Chemical Romance and take them they'd be publicly funded, and that way that My Chemical Romance could. I would nationalize pop punk and emo in general.
Yeah.
Nationalize the central bank. Well, the central bank's already nationalized. So we're halfway there.
There you are.
Yeah.
Fiscally sound policies as ever
Exactly,
from our new Minister for Finance. Okay, let's do it. Yes, indeed, you're very welcome to the State of Us. Election 2020, we're 1 week out. At the start, I think a lot of people probably felt like 3.5 weeks is a short campaign, but it has felt incredibly long. It does still feel like it feels strange that there is 8 more days. Last night we had the third of 4 debates, the last of the group debates, which I think is a small mercy. And Carol Kinsella, judging by your tweets last night, to your eternal credit, you managed to stay, I think, almost to the end. Did you get the whole way there?
I got the whole way there.
That's incredible.
Yeah, which, I mean, like I've said multiple times while covering this election, that's because I'm paid to do this. I don't think anyone who's not paid to do this would have had it as easy. A lot of the social media commentary was flooded with people saying that they had switched off in the first 15 minutes, in the first half an hour. And I think there was one specific reason given for that, and that was unfortunately the co-hosting of Ivan Yates. Ivan Yates, he was, to give him his due, like some people presumably tune into political broadcasts like debates for the catharsis of seeing people yell at politicians and seeing politicians yell at each other. But I think Ivan Yates took it to a whole new extreme yesterday, and it really was the Ivan Yates show. I think at one point I almost heard him say, "Let me finish this point."
Stop interrupting me.
Yeah, which is, that's what the politicians are there for. He's there to ask questions, and really what he saw his role as being there to make pronouncements.
You see, you say all that, but you've just started by saying this has been a very long campaign. We're hearing the same things, especially, and everyone was saying this about last night's debate. It came 3 days after the previous one in Galway. So what more could they say? What more could the same people, with a couple of people subbed in, but essentially the same as the characters say?
Some B-teamers, yeah.
So what we needed was a new character. What we needed was a new personality to inject. So the breakout star of election 2020 is Ivan Yates. Suddenly, out of nowhere, comes this guy and said, "I'm going to, make my mark. I'm going to stamp my authority on this debate," and he did that. The fact that we were, unenlightened. And less sure about any of the party's policies because of it is one thing. But from the point of view of saying politics, maybe people did switch off. Maybe the people on Twitter switched off, but a lot of them still seem to be there, even though they were saying they switched off. And I wonder if Ivan Yates thought, everyone has heard a lot of this stuff. I'm gonna make it entertaining at least, and everyone disputes the idea that politics should be entertaining. But
I think people dispute the idea that Ivan Yates is entertaining. But I think
I can't answer that.
I think
answer to that.
I agree that the new character strategy has definitely worked for shows like The Wire and Lost in the past. But as far as this election goes, Ivan Yates, he wasn't so much a new character as much as he was just a man cutting the legs off the characters who were already there. And especially because, a lot of people will note, And I guess these are the people you're talking about, Dion, who probably don't think politics is entertainment. It's people who look at it from the viewpoint of, you know, this is very serious and lives are on the line, etc. And that, like, say, for example, things like healthcare and childcare were not addressed in the first debate. So people probably wanted to hear some answers on those. And I think when it came down to it, 15 minutes in, Ivan Yates was cutting everyone off. It was very clear. You know, Micheál Martin eventually told him, you know, calm it down. And he seemed to take that on board. Which probably, like, you know, like, I mean, that's kind of, that's probably...
To his credit.
Yeah, well, that's, you know, first of all, maybe it tells you that Micheál Martin is a born leader, but maybe it also tells you, I'd say he probably got you know, I'm sure he had the earpiece in. You have to think that the producers of Virgin Media got in his ear and said, you have to scale this back.
But you see, the one thing I would question there is, and I wouldn't question the idea that there's serious issues at stake in this election, and, you know, people's votes will determine how the country is shaped for the next 4 or 5 years. But the idea, the leap there to some degree, is that the debates is where we establish
that we're learning
what they are, rather
debates,
than establishing, oh my God, like, how does Mary Lou get on with Micheál Martin? Has Mary Lou won this debate? Because, you know, you saw the one in Galway, Mary Lou had good sound bites ready to go that she delivered. Richard Boyd Barrett got the crowd going. He won those debates. How much that actually has a bearing on the actual policy, or how much it is is what wrapped up with their policies is a different question. So I think Ivan Yates played the debate for, he just became another personality in a personality show.
Can we briefly talk about, because we haven't spoken about them as a party at all yet over the course of this show, is Solidarity-PPP-AAA, is that Richard Boyd Barrett pretty much had the standout performance of the first debate in NUIG on Monday, and they subbed him out. You know, they subbed him out for Mick Barry, and Mick Barry last night, while he made some fair points, he made them in a way that does not work in a televised debate at all. His style of speaking was like, and why don't we spend enough on healthcare? I'll tell you why. And I'm going to make 2 points, and I'll make them very briefly. And it's like, you need to speed up right now.
But even in terms of profile, people will not recognise Mick Barry like they will recognise Richard Boyd Barrett.
The theory appears to be that apparently Mick Barry is in danger of losing his seat, and they put him on the national platform. So, you know,
I'm afraid Mick Barry had that. He had that air of somebody who has spent an awful long time of his life, and that's fine. In rooms where he starts every sentence with the words "through the chair,"
right?
You know, you know, I think the briefly comment was, in fact, he said something like, "I will be as brief as any of the others." He was, again, there was this kind of admin bureaucratic approach to delivering it, which comes from, I think, a lot of those meetings. You know, speaking through the chair.
I would have liked to have seen a separate camera on Ivan Yates as Mick Barry was speaking. He probably looked like a Doberman chewing a raw steak or something like that. He was probably absolutely losing his mind.
Just on Ivan Yates, is it like, you know, when ex-footballers, it's transfer deadline day, it's Brexit day, we'd have to get in some football analogies as well. You know, when ex-footballers go to interview like current footballers, like Henry goes to interview Lukaku or whatever, and instantly you see them loosening up. They're like, oh, he's played the game, he's done it at the highest level. So, and then obviously Henry expects as well the same. You know, Lukaku, give me the due. I'm not just some hack who's shown up. I've done it. Do you think Ivan Yates thinks, when he's talking to everybody, listen, I'm one of you. I know what this is about. Please show me the respect that I have earned and I'm due.
I think he certainly thinks he probably knows more than most of them about it. I'd say he certainly does, because you could even see from the get-go that he was obsessed with things like costings and how these things would be paid for.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, he's clearly kind of trying to be granular. I don't know if it really came off.
I thought that was quite an interesting point.
Only if you let them finish, though. Only if you actually hear the answer.
But I also thought there was he achieved a remarkable thing where he made Leo Varadkar kind of funny in the opening bit when he addressed them all. You know, we've got these chancers and charlatans here, and Leo said something which I think was intended to be a joke when he said something, and at a good evening to you too, Ivan. You know,
Leo has had
quite a singer.
Leo has had the jokes
by
lately,
political
though.
standards.
Like on Monday in NUIG in the RTE debate, he had another joke where he said, like, you know, and again, just the most it's just such a politics joke, the kind of joke that Paul Coors loved, where he was like, every party has nutters. There's even a few nutters in my own party.
Right,
and you could practically hear the Paul Coors be like, woo! Like that's what they love. And like these are the kind of things that play really well with people who are obsessed with the game of politics.
How did Leo Varadkar do it? We'll get to Micheál Martin and Mary Lou in a moment, but Leo Varadkar, the general consensus was this wasn't his best outing. Like, he's done quite well to date in terms of the debates, but he was better on Monday night, albeit with Claire Byrne as moderator.
Yeah, I think probably. It's kind of hard to say, because I think to meld 2 points together and talking about Mary Lou, and I think we're just going to have to, because this is the most salient thing I think that happened last night, especially with a view to whatever coalition is going to be built after the election. Mary Lou gave him a serious helping hand. Like when Mary Lou turned to him about the re-establishing power sharing in the north and said, Leo Varadkar has been very helpful, and Micheál Martin is only ever there with a jibe from the side. Like, that was unexpected.
Well, before you get stuck into it, let's hear that, because that is an important moment in the debate from last night. This was starting with Micheál Martin, and we will be hearing as well from Mary Lou. This is the moment.
The greatest barrier to Irish unity for the last 40 years on this island has been Sinn Féin. They have damaged the prospects of United Ireland more than any other political party, because they supported a campaign of violence that murdered many people in both communities wrongly, and they continue to try and justify it and endorse it. And when they say it belongs to no party, they aggressively went forward on the border poll immediately after Brexit. And the problem is that others looking, when they see Sinn Féin coming at them, saying we must have the border poll within 3 and 4 years, they look at it from a different perspective. And they look at it really at a movement that threatens them. And we know from Sinn Féin's record, and we know from the Provisional IRA's record, that huge damage was done to unity in this island, because it was a very sectarian campaign that hit communities hard along the border wrongly, and there was never proper atonement for that or acknowledgement of that. And it's something I passionately believe in.
Say, and just to put Micheál's mind at rest, there's nobody in the north who needs a homily from Micheál Martin on the troubles and the conflict and the real suffering that people experience. Nobody from any side of the divide. And what you find, astonishingly, for a leader of Fianna Fáil, if I might say so, that with Micheál Martin, it's always the jibe, it's always the put down from the side when it comes to the north. Let me say this, and in fairness to Leo Varadkar, and we have huge differences, and we've had huge differences in the course of the work to get the power sharing government re-established. But I have to say, in fairness to him, we recognise that was the job we had to do constructively to build the future. But with Micheál Martin, this is entirely party political posturing.
So, Dion, as Carl mentioned there, a good moment for Leo Varadkar.
Well, that's if you consider Sinn Féin, throwing praise your way to be a good moment. I'd wonder about that, but I would. I think it was interesting, because I think there is. They both went on to rule out coalition with Sinn Féin, and Leo Varadkar had a pop at the idea that, he said that Micheál Martin's party wasn't united behind this idea of ruling out coalition, whereas his was. But everything else, even I'm bringing my own baggage to this, if you like. But I think that the reasons why Fine Gael are ruling out coalition are much easier to kind of get around in a programme for government than Fianna Fáil's reasons are. Because Leo Varadkar says it's not about the past, it's about the present, and the present being the economic programme of Sinn Féin.
Leo actually likes the future. That's his one.
The future,
even the present isn't good enough for Leo.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
But it's the same. But it is the economic policy of Sinn Féin. Yeah. So if you're sitting down in a negotiation post the election, a lot of that stuff could be negotiated down and whittled away. So I think there is an element there of, I think, while he says his party is united behind him in opposition to coalition with Sinn Féin, I think there is a negotiating point there that is easy, that is harder for Micheál Martin to reach with the stance he's taken.
Leo has set it up in a way where it's not about the shadowy Ord Corla or the history of it's not about the history of Northern Ireland vis-a-vis the Troubles and all that. Leo Varadkar has made it very plain that he just believes that Sinn Féin's economic policies would lead to ruin, and so he can just, as soon as the election is over, if it turns out that the maths add up and he could go into government with Sinn Féin, he's positioned himself quite well because he can just get economic concessions from Sinn Féin, get them to change their policies, and then maybe they can do a deal together. And as has been noted by the parties that are kind of to the left of Sinn Féin have resolutely not ruled out speaking to either party after, to the point that they've been asked to do it 100 times and they still won't do it. I think that tells you quite a lot. So, that's not just ambiguous as to whether or not they'd talk about coalition with Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael. Once you refuse to answer the question 100 times, people will start drawing the conclusion that they are prepared to go into these coalitions.
Well, you wonder too, because the thing that I felt about Leo Varadkar last night was at the very end, it sort of summed up how slowly the penny seems to be dropping for Fine Gael, because his last, his concluding remarks, he started again with this thing about the tax cut. We will put more money in your pocket. Now, this didn't work in the last election, and I don't think it's. I think it's an old playbook. It's again very much a Fine Gael thing of let's take every little bit of every playbook we can from kind of centre-right parties across Europe and the world over the past 30 years. And the thing that is people are crying out for, they appreciate that the economy is on a good footing in a macro sense, but they're housing and health are the issues. And Fine Gael, by starting off by something else, he got to housing and health, but by starting off with that again, it's I don't know if you're maybe you can't address them because you're held responsible for them, but you have to acknowledge that you need to do more in that. Now, especially on housing, a Fine Gael Sinn Féin coalition would allow Fine Gael to piggyback on the most impressive housing spokesperson in the election, which is Owen O'Brien. And so if you were now, how Owen O'Brien would work in a Fine Gael government, I don't know, but Fine Gael Sinn Féin government, but that would solve a very obvious difficulty for Fine Gael in terms of how they are perceived, because their housing, Owen Murphy is one of the problems with their campaign.
Well, I think that's probably, if this is why people on the left are so concerned about the idea of a Sinn Féin coalition, is because you definitely get the sense that were Sinn Féin to go into coalition with Fine Gael, it wouldn't be Sinn Féin's housing policy implemented. It would remain Fine Gael's. You'd get maybe some compromise, but you'd imagine that it wouldn't be Owen O'Brien who'd be housing minister. You'd think it would probably still be Owen Murphy.
I don't,
Yeah,
I don't know about that.
I don't really know. Maybe you could do Roy Evans, Jared Houllier thing, where the two of them basically fight over it and run us into the ground together.
That would be an interesting.
But I think that. I think once all is said and done, I think that's not going to happen. It's not going to be a Fine Gael and Sinn Féin because there is too much baggage there.
Okay, back to Fianna Fáil, because Dion, I'll put it to you that from a Fianna Fáil point of view, is the big problem for Micheál Martin the fact that ideologically and in terms of their existence, there are two Republican parties that essentially that Sinn Féin, Fianna Fáil are threatened by Sinn Féin's existence, and the surge in the polls is a problem for them because they want to inhabit, and essentially in many cases do inhabit, the same space.
Well, yeah, I think some of them probably do. I think Micheál Martin, his tone of republicanism is very different to Sinn Féin's. Whether there are more people there are other people in Fianna Fáil who are more sympathetic to the Sinn Féin Republican position, there probably are. But I think it's a huge clash because it is a fundamental thing, and I think it is I look at Sinn Féin and I think they're they're not hiding this. Their overarching demand, their overarching philosophy, their overarching desire is for a united Ireland. That is the most important plank of their manifesto. So if you vote for Sinn Féin and you like some of their policies but you don't want a united Ireland, it's like being a Remain supporter and voting for the Brexit party because you like their plans for motorway maintenance. You know what I mean? It doesn't add up. This is what they want above all else. And Mary Lou McDonald, she's very good at it, but even in that exchange, when Micheál Martin said, you know, that Sinn Féin are the biggest impediment to United Ireland, she didn't address that, because she says, you know, nobody in the north needs homilies from Fianna Fáil and all the and people who've suffered on both sides there. Now, there's lots of people in Northern Ireland who don't need any homilies from Mary Lou MacDonald or anyone from Sinn Féin as well. And I think there is a reality to what Micheál Martin says about a United Ireland in terms of what kind of United Ireland you want it to be. And ultimately, and I think, you know, Ellen asked Mary Lou this question when she was in here, and ultimately, Sinn Féin could be an impediment, could be the group that needs to get out of the way if you're going to do a United Ireland where actually you persuade the people who need to be persuaded.
The reason I disagree with that is because Sinn Féin have never been in government. I don't think you can legitimately be said to be impeding something if you've never been in a position to shape policy. As in, like, there is no United Ireland and there is no border poll. And that is the consistent and persistent choice of Fine Gael governments and Fianna Fáil governments.
But they're impeding. They're impeding.
They're impeding it on like a esoteric level. It's not a real impediment.
No, the impediment is the years of IRA killings. That's the impediment. That's not an esoteric thing. That's a real and concrete thing that happened to people. And the tone of Sinn Féin never really shifting.
But your argument, your argument can't possibly be the Troubles is an impediment to United Ireland, like that,
Why not?
Because that was the purpose of the Troubles, was to achieve United Ireland. Like, as in, there would be absolutely, there would be as in, like,
but you understand. But
like
there's
the Good Friday Agreement.
But you see, you're doing the thing that, like, you're looking at a United Ireland from the point of view of uniting, you know, the people who want to be united and ignoring the people who are on the island who don't want to be united, and their resistance. Like, if you want to ignore what happened to them during the Troubles, then fine. But
Sinn Féin, that's not. I mean, like, that's not. Mary Lou said that there were however many hundreds of thousands of unionists in Northern Ireland, and that they have to be cared for in a United Ireland as well. She's said a border poll in the next 5 years, so she's not calling for it right away. And as to the point about, say, for example, the Brexit and motorway thing, every candidate on the stage yesterday said that they were in favour of a United Ireland. So no matter who you're voting for a party who is obviously it's more Sinn Féin have claimed ownership more so than anyone else. But to say that you're an impediment to something, particularly in 2020, as opposed to 1973,
but my point is that if you want a United Ireland that actually,
what has Micheál Martin ever done to achieve a United Ireland?
Well, we're not told. Well, I think he would. I don't know what he has done to achieve in the United Ireland, but, like, it is depressing. Like,
well, how can you claim someone else is an impediment to something that you yourself have never tried to achieve?
Well, no, I think the impediment is that there is a hostility among the unionist community to anything that is going to be driven by Sinn Féin for understandable reasons, and the idea that you would be co-opting them into something. I think there is.
Well, would you say the unionists would be more comfortable if it was Fianna? I mean, they'd be more.
Well,
would they be comfortable if it was Fianna? Like,
like
the DUP consistently for the last 2 or 3 years have made out that Leo Varadkar is undermining unionism. Like, as in, so I would argue that basically whoever is in government in Ireland, and I sincerely believe this, as long as they were working actively towards a United Ireland. Because unionists, by definitionally, don't want United.
But then what are we going to? Then what are we going to do? Like, what are we?
I sincerely do not know. I don't have an answer for that
at all.
Like,
my position is I don't want a United Ireland. So, like, I can say, like, but I think if you're United Ireland, but there's a part of me that thinks an Ireland united where actually every tradition on this island was kind of bought into what was happening would make Ireland a far superior place. I would like the like, this might sound complete fantasy, but I would like the mix of traditions. I think it would actually make for a better country, a more
a unified Ireland as opposed to a united Ireland, because a unified Ireland isn't possible.
So if you want that, then what do you do to get that? Because the big impediment to that is the wishes of the unionists. Now, you might be right. You're probably right that whatever you say, they're gonna say no because that's their position.
Yeah,
but,
like the biggest impediment,
biggest
impediment to United Ireland is the fact that, and this is a legitimate view, if you are of British heritage in Northern Ireland, this is an entirely legitimate way to feel. But if the biggest impediment to United Ireland is obviously the fact that roughly 1 million people on the island don't want to be part of United Ireland. They are part of a union, and that union is the United Kingdom. That's the impediment. So that's what I'm saying, is that it's a disingenuous argument to, and I fully accept that lots of people don't need homilies from Mary Lou McDonald, because Sinn Féin's association with the IRA is problematic, and that is going to, facts are facts, that's going to stop a lot of people voting for them. But as far as the debate goes, and as far as making your argument, it's disingenuous and inaccurate to say that someone like Mary Lou McDonald and the current iteration of Sinn Féin is the biggest obstacle between
I would say
Dion, come back on that.
I think it would be the biggest obstacle to persuading people, if you think they can be persuaded, which is a big if.
Yes, it's a huge if.
Yeah, it's a huge if. But if you think they can be persuaded, but the only way you're going to have a unified Ireland, as far as I can see, that isn't some sort of balkanized state, is by persuading them, not by.
So your view is that Fianna Fáil have a better chance as an All Ireland party.
Well, I don't know.
Than Sinn Féin.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I think Sinn Féin, the idea
but
that
they
Sinn
don't
Féin,
have that impediment.
No, that's not what I said at all. I said Sinn Féin as an impediment. I can see that point. It's not that I'm then saying, Fianna Fáil, because then you're back into, well, what do you want from United Ireland? I honestly think when I hear Micheál Martin talking about it, I think that's a more desirable type of United Ireland than the one, but again, it might be fantasy.
Yes,
you know.
And to be
the
fair,
other thing I would say on this is that, like you said, a lot of people whose Sinn Féin baggage will stop them voting for or their baggage will stop them voting for Sinn Féin, and that's been a line that's put forward still, or that young people are ignoring their baggage. I think it's the opposite. I think that baggage is something that it partly explains the surge in the youth vote.
What cannot be disputed is the surge.
Yeah,
what the opinion polls are saying is that Sinn Féin are up to 19% in the most recent opinion poll as the second biggest.
Yeah, and I think Dion is right.
Party in Ireland.
I think Dion is entirely correct on that point. I think that Sinn Féin are surging with young people, not just because they have more progressive views on housing and healthcare, and not just because we've never had them in government before, but I think because realistically, in the last 3 and 4 years, young Irish people are more nationalistic than say the people who were reaching maturity and going through their lives at the time of the Good Friday Agreement, when things were becoming a little bit more placid.
Do you think those people have considered where unionists fit into this unified United Ireland?
No, probably not. I would say probably not.
Because that is something that, in terms of impediment, that is.
Yeah, and I suppose it's important to clarify kind of who you're talking about. I'm sure there are lots of people out there who are thinking long and hard about how unionism and unionists would fit into United Ireland. But I think there are a lot of people, and I mean this is a core tenet of staunch republicanism, that it's not about the unionists. It is about just going back to what we had 800 years ago, where it's Ireland entirely ruled by Irish people. Obviously.
Well, we're not going back 800 years,
and that's not going to. That's not going to happen.
We've spent a long time laughing. And it is Brexit Day. We spent a long time laughing at the delusions of English nationalism, and the manifestation of it is going to be seen today. And we will give anybody a good contest in terms of delusions around nationalism, and the same patterns of failure to understand, to see things driven entirely from that nationalistic point of view. And and there are reasons for it, and there are talk of oppression and all these things are valid, and all these things that happen, but at the same time, any conversation about that actually tries to, I think you're actually more entitled to be a Republican and not want a united Ireland than to and saying, well, actually the unionist people are there and I don't want anything to do with them because of their attitude. But if you start talking about a United Ireland, you have to start factoring in the people who are there, rather than harking back. And I know you're only talking about one strain of republicanism, but harking back to some time before the plantation.
There are going to be, and this conversation is only going to continue as the years go on. I think we're only going to get deeper and deeper into it. So a lot of strains of thought are going to emerge, and we are going to have people who do not care at all how the unionists fit into a united Ireland. They're going to be people who do their very utmost to make it as palatable as possible for everybody to, achieve Micheál Martin's dream of all of us, holding hands and dancing around the fire.
Like De Valera.
Yeah. But I think at the end of the day, I think probably the most salient point made is the hugeness of the if. There really is... the idea of a functional united Ireland. It's mad. People make the point that, in the 2016 general election, this seemed so far away, and now here we are talking about it. We're talking about it because of Brexit, and we're talking about it because the choice of the United Kingdom to leave the European Union has put Northern Ireland economically in a really terrible position, to the point that Northern Ireland would now economically probably be better placed were it to unite and align economically with the Republic and with the EU guidelines. But the fact is that ideologically and in terms of, cross-divide empathy and understanding, I don't know if we've moved on at all. Since 2016, I would say we haven't moved on at all.
I'd say we've gone the other direction.
Yeah, we've probably gone the other direction.
Okay, well, let's talk about Brexit in the context of the whole island as well, because today is Brexit Day, and in fairness, it's an issue that has disappeared from the conversation, mostly because people had just reached saturation point and we're very relieved to leave it aside after Christmas, and it hasn't really bubbled up in the way that I presume Fine Gael would have preferred, given their manifesto. It was chapter 1, and Fianna Fáil it was, I think, towards the end or wherever. I mean, like, today is a day where we've arrived at Brexit. There is a deal, and presumably Fine Gael will look to hype that up, Dion, because they've delivered that deal, and it is a day that I presume for the rest of the campaign now, Fine Gael can make some political capital off that.
Well, yeah, I suppose they can for a couple of days,
hours maybe.
Hours. I don't know how long it will last. We went down to Simon Coveney's constituency earlier in the week and asked people what they were, how high Brexit placed on their lists of priorities, and what does half time in Brexit mean. I swallowed hard and asked that question, and nobody cares about it. Like, nobody cares about it at all, and you didn't need to go and ask people that to find the answer to that question. But it's how long it's a stay. Like, there will be some appreciation for what Leo Varadkar and Simon Coveney did to a degree. But I think at the same time, again, it's done. I don't think anybody is then thinking about the trade negotiations.
No.
And the difficulties of that, and are also buys into this Fine Gael pushed idea that only they can take care of the trade negotiation, because in some ways, they've already said after the first stage was done, they said we're now going to be kind of Britain's closest friend in the second stage of it. Now, you could make the argument, well, if you spent the last 2 years having pops at them, maybe somebody else might be in a better position to be their friend. You know what I mean? So there isn't that argument now. Their experience and their how they've conducted themselves, and the respect Leo Varadkar and Simon Coveney especially have picked up along the way will stand to them. But I don't think the public are going to be thinking we can't trust Micheál Martin on a trade deal when the big what also put Ireland front and centre, and this is a big important point. What put Ireland front and centre was the border, and the border is dealt with. So Ireland are just one of a number, and we are probably going to suffer in the trade deal for a number of reasons because of that. And there are other factors in, there will be things that are coming down the line, like corporate tax rate and stuff that don't feed into that. But Europe is looking at Ireland in a very in things like that now. So I don't think we are the big players in this stage that we were in the first stage.
Carol, in the British general election, we'll remember Donald Trump ringing into LBC to burnish Boris Johnson's campaign. I mean, would something similar now if Boris Johnson were to ring into Morning Ireland or Joe Duffy and say how great he thinks Leo Varadkar, would that be useful to Leo Varadkar at this stage?
I'm useful in the sense of, all coffins need nails. And I guess that will provide that. I think if Boris Johnson were to speak up now and put his head above the parapet for any of the candidates, that would pretty much be a death knell. I think Leo Varadkar, one of, like Dion has kind of alluded to this, one of the strongest elements, something that has improved Leo Varadkar's standing in Ireland, is how he has been vilified by members of the Tory party, by the DUP, by the Sun, by the kind of traditional enemies of the Irish citizenry. So yeah, I think if that were to happen, but not that there's, do
you think Leo thought that was going to do him some good?
I think he did. Like judging by how they decided to set up their manifesto and the way they planned out their campaign, the whole. I'm not going to say the halftime thing, but all that, like they clearly thought Brexit was going to be a bit of a silver bullet for them and that it was going to help them get over the line. But see, the thing is, like, Brexit is a process with lots of knock-on effects, and when you have record crowding in hospitals and record homelessness, people only care about the knock-on effects. So it's like it would have been like in one of the mid-2000 elections asking people, oh, what do you think about the way American banks are giving out mortgages so easily now? And like people being like, oh, I don't care about that, I just want somewhere to sleep on a hospital. But of course it was as a result of that Lehman Brothers collapsed and Bear Stearns collapsed, and we all ended up without a job and 50,000 people emigrating. So we don't know what the effects of Brexit are going to be, but we do know that people don't care until they happen. And for now people are not going to be thinking about, and maybe some time down the line Leo Varadkar will say, well, I warned you should have kept me in charge for Brexit. But I mean, that kind of also, I mean, as you say, he's one of 27 leaders now. I don't think it actually hugely matters. With regards to Brexit, I don't think it really matters who's leading Ireland going into the next phase, as long as they are some way capable, and have their
Sean
heads.
Haughey.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, something that a lot of people in the civil service will tell you is that, like, the Department of Foreign Affairs has basically always been the shining jewel of the Irish civil service, and we have very, very good operators in the Department of Foreign Affairs. So, Simon Coveney has looked very good in the last couple of years, but I'm pretty sure you'd cross your fingers that an Irish Minister for Foreign Affairs will always look good, whether it be Sean Haughey or someone else.
Right, okay. Listen, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Absolute pleasure here chatting today. Parachuted in here to sit alongside you two gentlemen has been a pleasure. And just to say thank you very much for watching and listening to The State of Us. Loads of people watching on YouTube, huge numbers, and lots of people tuning in as well and watching it on social. If you haven't already done so, you can click subscribe wherever you are listening to the show, or click subscribe on YouTube and you will get every episode of State of Us. One more show before D-Day, so we won't ask for any predictions just yet, but for now I want to say thanks very much to Dion and to Carl and to all the production team here at Joe. We'll see you again soon.